Admiral Hyunwoo Kim stood in the center of the massive courtroom. Around him, representatives from 847 different alien species watched from their floating platforms. The air felt heavy with judgment. He wore his best uniform, but it felt small compared to the giant chamber that surrounded him. Dr. Yoon-ji Park sat at the defense table behind him. Her hands were steady as she organized her papers, but Hyunwoo could see the worry in her eyes. They had prepared for this day for months, but no amount of preparation felt like enough. The Galactic Council had called this trial to decide humanity's fate. The charges were serious. Too serious. The aliens said humans were too violent, too reckless with technology, and too dangerous to other cultures. They said humanity was a threat to galactic peace. Commander Jamin Lee sat in the gallery with other human observers. His young face was hard with anger. Minister Sujin Choi, the civilian representative from Earth, kept whispering with her advisors. Everyone knew this trial would change everything. The chief arbiter floated down from the highest platform. It was a creature from the celestial hegemony, the oldest and most powerful species in the council. Its body looked like flowing water made of starlight. When it spoke, its voice echoed through every translator in the room. The Galactic Council will now hear the final charges against the species known as humans, the arbiter announced. A prosecutor from the Zephyrian Empire stepped forward. Its forearms gestured dramatically as it spoke. Honored council members, humanity has shown itself to be a plague upon civilized space. In just 200 years since first contact, they have disrupted our ancient order. Hyunwoo clenched his fists but kept his face calm. He had heard these accusations before. They refuse to accept their proper place in our hierarchy, the prosecutor continued. They make treaties with species we have classified as primitive. They share advanced technology with races that have not earned it. They corrupt our youth with dangerous ideas about equality and freedom. Dr. Yoon-ji Park stood up. Honored arbiter, we request the right to respond to these charges. The arbiter's form shimmered. You may speak, but know that the council has already reviewed all evidence. Yoon-ji walked to the center of the chamber. She was small compared to most of the alien representatives, but her voice was strong. The prosecution calls us disruptive. We call it progress. They say we refuse our place in their hierarchy. We say all thinking beings deserve respect, regardless of when they developed space travel. Murmurs rose from some of the platforms. Several species nodded in agreement, but others made sounds of disapproval. The council fears our friendships with younger species. Yoon-ji continued. But why should the time of first contact determine a species' worth? The Keth may be young to space travel, but their knowledge of mineral extraction surpasses many ancient races. The Vorn have solved problems of underwater construction that baffled the galaxy for centuries. The Zephyrian prosecutor interrupted. These species were properly classified as laborers and specialists. Humans have elevated them beyond their station, creating instability. Admiral Hyunwoo felt his anger rise. The council's classification system was just slavery with fancy names. They decided which species were smart enough to make decisions and which ones existed only to serve. What instability? Yoon-ji asked. The Outer Rim territories are more peaceful now than they have been in 1,000 years. Human mediation has ended 6 major conflicts. Our trade networks have brought prosperity to dozens of worlds. Unauthorized prosperity, the prosecutor shot back. These changes were not approved by proper authorities. The chief arbiter raised one of its flowing appendages. The council recognizes the achievements mentioned by the defense. However, the question is not whether humans have had positive effects. The question is whether they can be trusted to follow galactic law. A new voice spoke from one of the higher platforms. It belonged to an ancient creature from the Hierarchist Alliance. Humans show a dangerous pattern of independent thinking. They question authority. They encourage others to do the same. This threatens the stability that has maintained peace for 10,000 years. Commander Jamin Lee stood up in the gallery. What peace? He called out before his guards could stop him. The peace of keeping billions of beings in chains? The peace of telling entire species they can never be more than workers or soldiers? Security forces moved toward him, but Admiral Hyunwoo held up his hand. The commander speaks out of turn, but he speaks truth. Your peace is built on fear and oppression. The chamber erupted in angry sounds from dozens of species. Some supported the humans, but more condemned them. The chief arbiter's form flared brighter, demanding silence. This outburst proves our point, the hierarchist representative said. Humans cannot respect proper order. They corrupt others with their anarchist beliefs. Dr. Yoon-ji Park walked back to the center. We are not anarchists. We believe in law and justice and cooperation, but we also believe that justice cannot exist when some beings are considered worth more than others, simply because of their species. She gestured toward the platforms around her. Look at this chamber. The oldest species sit highest. The newest sit lowest. Decisions are made based on age, not wisdom. Voices are heard based on power, not truth. You call this justice? The Zephyrian prosecutor's forearms waved angrily. Humans have had barely 2 centuries in space. They are children trying to lecture their elders. Then why are you so afraid of us? Hyunwoo asked quietly. The question hung in the air. Many of the alien representatives shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. The chief arbiter's voice cut through the tension. The Galactic Council has heard enough. We will now deliberate. The floating platforms began to move, forming smaller groups for discussion. Humans were not allowed to participate in this part. They could only wait and watch as their fate was decided by others. Hours passed. The alien representatives argued in languages that the translators could not fully capture. Some groups seemed calm. Others grew heated. Admiral Hyunwoo tried to read their body language, but alien expressions were hard to understand. Finally, the platforms returned to their original positions. The chief arbiter floated to the center of the chamber. Its starlight body pulsed with what might have been satisfaction. The Galactic Council has reached its decision, the arbiter announced. By a vote of 612 to 235 with abstentions noted, humanity is found guilty of all charges. Dr. Yoon-ji Park closed her eyes. Minister Soo-jin Choi put her face in her hands. Commander Jaemin Lee cursed under his breath. The sentence is banishment, the arbiter continued. All human colonies within council space must be evacuated within 1 galactic standard year. Humans are forbidden from entering any council-controlled system. Trade with member species is prohibited. Access to galactic communication networks is revoked. Admiral Hyun-woo stepped forward. You are making a mistake that you will regret. The decision is final, the arbiter replied. Humanity chose its path when it refused to accept civilized order. Now it must live with the consequences. As the platforms began to disperse, Dr. Yoon-ji Park stood up. Her voice carried clearly through the vast chamber. We came to this galaxy offering friendship and cooperation. You have chosen to answer with fear and hatred. But remember this day because history will judge which of us was truly civilized. The human delegation left the chamber in silence. Behind them, the representatives of 847 species returned to their ancient debates, convinced they had solved their human problem forever. They had no idea what they had actually done. Fleet Admiral Mi Young-song floated in the command center of the massive ship called New Hope. Through the transparent walls, she could see hundreds of other ships stretching in every direction. The Great Fleet was the largest group of vessels ever assembled in galactic history. Every ship was packed with humans and their belongings, leaving behind the only homes many had ever known. Status report. Mi Young called to her officers. All evacuation fleets report on schedule, replied Captain Dong-hyun. Yoon from his position at the communications station. The last transports are departing from New Geneva now. Mi Young nodded. 1 year had seemed like a long time when the council gave them their deadline. Now it felt like they had barely managed everything in time. Moving 37 billion humans and their allies from hundreds of worlds was the biggest challenge humanity had ever faced. Engineer Won-ho Park worked at his design station nearby. His fingers moved quickly over holographic displays, making final adjustments to the ship modifications. The ARC ship conversions are complete on schedule, he reported. Every vessel now has long-term life support and resource processing capabilities. Won-ho was Dr. Yoon-ji Park's brother, and he shared her brilliant mind. When the council banned humans from galactic trade networks, he realized they would need completely self-sufficient ships. His ARC ship design could keep people alive and comfortable for decades in deep space. How are our new friends doing? Mi Young asked. Counselor Hae-jin Nam looked up from her reports. Better than expected. The Keth mining crews have tripled our metal processing capacity. The Vorn engineers have improved our water recycling systems by 40%. Every species that joined us has made us stronger. Mi Young smiled at that. The council had expected humans to flee in scattered groups, weak and defeated. Instead, the exodus had become something amazing. Dozens of species oppressed by the Council's rigid system had asked to join the human fleet. The journey to the Rim territories was bringing different peoples together in ways the galaxy had never seen. Admiral, Captain Dong Hyun's voice was excited. Long-range scouts are reporting back from the Outer Rim. You need to see this. A holographic display showed star charts of the Rim territories. These areas were far from the Council's core worlds, in regions most species considered worthless or dangerous. The display highlighted dozens of systems with promising readings. The scouts found more than we hoped, Dong Hyun explained. Rich mineral deposits, multiple habitable worlds, and energy sources that could power our entire fleet for centuries. Won-ho leaned over to study the data. These gravitational anomalies that scare other species away, they're actually protecting valuable resources. And the dangerous fauna they worry about, most of it avoids areas with the right kind of development. Mi-young felt hope growing in her chest. The Council thought they were sending humans into exile in worthless space. Instead, they had given them access to some of the richest territories in the galaxy. There's more, Dong Hyun continued. We've made contact with several isolated species in the Rim regions. They've been hiding from the Council for centuries, too weak to resist but too proud to submit. They're interested in talking. A communication alert sounded through the command center. The face of Admiral Hyun-woo Kim appeared on the main screen. He was aboard the flagship Resilience, leading one of the other major fleet groups. Mi-young. His voice was steady but excited. Are you receiving the scout reports? We are, Hyun-woo. This changes everything. The Council may have done us the biggest favor in human history, he replied. We're not just finding refuge out here. We're finding opportunity. Won-ho stepped closer to the communication screen. Admiral Kim, the resource readings suggest we could build manufacturing centers that would make anything in Council space look primitive. These raw materials combined with human engineering could create technologies we've only dreamed about. Dr. Yoon-ji Park's face joined the communication from another ship. The political implications are even more interesting, she said. Every species fleeing Council oppression is coming to us. We're not just saving humanity. We're building the foundation for a completely new kind of galactic civilization. Mi-young looked around at her mixed crew. Humans worked alongside Keth mineral specialists and Vorn engineers. A Threnody communications expert helped translate between different languages. Young beings from a dozen species learned together at shared workstations. How long until we reach the first settlement sites? She asked. Captain Dong Hyun checked his navigation displays. At current speed, another 3 weeks to the primary target system. But Admiral, we might want to consider splitting the fleet. Explain. The scout reports show multiple systems with good settlement potential. If we establish several colonies simultaneously, we can begin resource sharing and mutual support much faster. Plus, it makes us harder to attack if the Council changes their mind about leaving us alone. Counselor Hye-jin Nam looked up from her political reports. The species joining us have different environmental needs too. Spreading out would let each group find ideal conditions while maintaining connection through trade and communication. Mi-young considered the proposal. Traditional military thinking said to keep forces concentrated, but they weren't just a military fleet anymore. They were the seed of a new civilization. Won-ho, can your ARC ship designs handle extended separation from the main fleet? The engineer nodded confidently. Each ship is designed for independent operation. The modular systems can be combined to create permanent stations or separated for exploration missions. We're prepared for whatever we find out there. Dr. Yoon-ji Park's image smiled from the communication screen. There's something poetic about this, isn't there? The Council banished us to keep us from contaminating their rigid order. Instead, they've given us the freedom to create something completely new. Admiral Hyun-woo Kim's expression was thoughtful. We should document everything. Future generations need to understand how this exodus happened. They need to know that we didn't just survive banishment. We turned it into liberation. A new alert sounded. One of the scout ships was requesting urgent communication. Captain Dong Hyun opened the channel immediately. Fleet Command, this is Scout Ship Pathfinder, came the excited voice. We found something incredible in the Helix Nebula system. The main display switched to show readings from the distant scout ship. The data made everyone in the command center stop and stare. Those energy reading, Won-ho whispered. That's not possible. What are we looking at? Mi-young demanded. A derelict megastructure, the scout replied. Bigger than anything in Council space. The energy core is still partially active, but there are no life signs. It's been abandoned for thousands of years. Dr. Yoonji Park leaned closer to her screen. Any idea who built it? Negative. The architecture doesn't match any known species. But Admiral, the technology here is centuries ahead of anything we've ever seen. If we could study it, understand it. Mi Young felt her heart racing. First the rich resources, then the potential allies, and now this. The Rim territories weren't just refuge. They were full of possibilities the Council had never imagined. All fleet commanders, she announced on the General Communication Channel, we're modifying our approach. Prepare for multi-system colonization. We're not just surviving exile anymore. We're building an empire. As the Great Fleet adjusted course toward their new destiny, Mi Young thought about the Council representatives who had voted for human banishment. They believed they were protecting their ancient order by removing a disruptive element. They had no idea they had just given humanity access to technologies, resources, and allies that would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The exodus was ending, but something much bigger was about to begin. In the distance, the Rim territories waited with their secrets and opportunities. Humanity was coming, and they were not coming alone. President Jin A. Kang stood on the observation deck of Unity Station, watching the construction of the newest orbital shipyard. 50 years had passed since the Great Exodus, and the Rim territories barely resembled the empty space the Council had banished them to. Massive space habitats orbited every suitable star. Thriving colonies covered dozens of worlds. Trade routes connected hundreds of systems in a web of prosperity. The quarterly reports are in, announced General Tae-ho Lim as he joined her at the viewing window. Production is up another 12%. The integration protocols are working better than we hoped. Jin-A smiled as she watched. Keth workers installing armor plating on a new cruiser, while Vorn engineers tested the ship's underwater combat capabilities. Human supervisors coordinated with Threnody communications specialists to ensure perfect timing. The shipyard was a perfect example of what made their civilization unique. Any word from our deep scouts? She asked. That's why I'm here, Tae-ho replied, his expression growing serious. Captain Dong Hyun Yoon's expedition has made contact with 3 more species seeking asylum from Council space. But there's concerning news too. Jeannie turned from the window.
Council activity?
Their border patrols have increased by 300%. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for something big. Tae-ho activated a holographic display showing the border regions between Council space and human territories. They're not just watching anymore. They're building up forces. Before Jin-A could respond, another figure entered the observation deck. Scientist Bo-ram Shin carried data tablets and wore the excited expression she always had when making breakthrough discoveries. Perfect timing, Bo-ram announced. I have news that changes everything. She activated her own holographic display, showing complex molecular structures and energy patterns. The quantum biological fusion project is complete. We've successfully merged quantum manipulation technology with biological enhancement systems. Jin-A studied the displays, trying to understand the implications. In simple terms, please, Bo-ram grinned. We can now upgrade our people at the cellular level, while giving them direct control over quantum forces. Enhanced intelligence, perfect health, extended lifespans, and the ability to manipulate matter with focused thought. General Tae-ho Lim whistled softly. How extended are we talking about for lifespans? Conservative estimates suggest 500 years, possibly more. And that's just the beginning. Bo-ram's excitement was contagious. The quantum manipulation abilities mean our people can repair technology by thinking about it, create new materials from base elements, and even communicate instantaneously across vast distances. What about our allies? Jin-A asked. Can the enhancement work on other species? We've tested it successfully on volunteers from 6 different species, Bo-ram confirmed. The quantum biological matrix adapts to each species' unique physiology. Everyone benefits according to their natural strengths. Ambassador Kyung-Soo Han arrived just in time to hear the last part of the conversation. His expression was grim despite the good news. We're going to need every advantage we can get, he said. I've just returned from the neutral zone. The Council is spreading propaganda that we're building weapons of mass destruction out here. Jin-A felt her good mood fade. Are they planning to break the banishment treaty? Worse, Kyung-Soo replied. They're claiming we never honored it. They say our expansion into the Rim territories violates the spirit of our exile. Some of the more aggressive council members are calling for a military solution to the human problem. General Tae-ho Lim activated his own displays, showing fleet positions and defensive preparations. Our military strength has grown considerably. The integrated multi-species approach gives us capabilities the Council has never faced. But they still have numbers. Do they, though? Boram asked thoughtfully. Our intelligence suggests at least 200 Council species are unhappy with the current system. How many would actually fight to preserve it? Ambassador Kyung-Soo Han nodded slowly. That matches my observations. The younger species especially are asking difficult questions about why they have fewer rights than the ancient races. Our example of successful cooperation is making council authority look arbitrary and unfair. Jin'e walked to the center of the observation deck, looking out at the bustling activity around Unity Station. Humans, Keth, Vorn, Threnody, and a dozen of other species worked together as equals. Their combined efforts had built something amazing in just 50 years. We need to accelerate the open door protocol, she decided. Any being seeking freedom from council oppression should know they have a place here. That could be seen as an act of war, General Tae-ho warned. Offering refuge to refugees is not an act of war, Jin'e replied firmly. It's an act of basic decency. If the council wants to call that aggression, it says more about them than about us. A communication alert interrupted their discussion. The face of Admiral Hyun-woo Kim appeared on the main screen. His hair was now silver with age, but his eyes were as sharp as ever. Jin'e, we have a situation developing in Sector 7, he reported. 3 council member species have formally requested protection, while they withdraw from the galactic government. The council is mobilizing forces to stop them. Which species? She asked. The Dalari Federation, the Outer Colonies Alliance, and the Spiral Arm Coalition? Combined, that's over 40 systems and 2 billion beings choosing freedom over council control. General Tae-ho Lim stepped closer to the communication screen. What kind of council forces are we looking at? Significant, Admiral Kim replied. But here's the interesting part. The council military is having loyalty problems. Several species assigned to the intervention fleet are requesting transfers rather than fight against people seeking the same freedoms they want for themselves. Scientist Boram. Shin looked up from her data tablets. Admiral, how quickly do you need the quantum biological enhancements deployed? How quickly can you make it happen? The basic enhancement process takes 6 hours per individual, but we've developed a broadcast system that can provide temporary quantum abilities to entire fleets simultaneously. Jin'e made her decision. Do it. Upgrade our entire military to the new enhancement level, and prepare the broadcast system for our allies. Ambassador Kyung-Soo Han looked concerned. Are we sure we want to reveal our full capabilities this early? The Council is going to find out what we're capable of sooner or later, Jin'e replied. Better they learn when we're using our abilities to protect innocent people than when we're forced to use them for conquest. General Tae-ho Lim was already coordinating with his staff through his communication devices. Fleet positions are being adjusted. We can have intervention forces in Sector 7 within 18 hours. This is it, isn't it? Admiral Kim asked from the screen. The moment that determines whether our exile becomes permanent separation or the first step toward galactic change. Jin'e looked around at her advisors and friends. 50 years ago, they had been refugees fleeing persecution. Now they were leaders of a civilization that offered hope to oppressed beings across the galaxy. The transformation was remarkable, but she knew it was only the beginning. Send a message to the Council, she decided. Tell them we are dispatching humanitarian forces to protect beings exercising their fundamental right to self-determination. Any interference with this mission will be considered an act of aggression. That's essentially a declaration of war, General Tae-ho observed. No, Jin'e corrected him. That's a declaration of principles. The Council can choose whether those principles lead to war or to a better galaxy for everyone. As her staff began implementing the new orders, Jin'e returned to the observation window. The shipyard below was launching 3 new vessels every day. Each ship carried the combined knowledge of dozens of species working together as equals. The technology they built was advancing faster than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Council had banished humanity to prevent them from disrupting galactic order. Instead, they had given humans 50 years to build something powerful enough to replace that order entirely. The Forge of Empires was complete. Now it was time to test what they had created. Fleet Commander Yeonsu Jong watched the tactical display as her Liberation Fleet approached the Dalari home system. The Council's intervention force had arrived first, but their ships hung in space without moving. Something was wrong with their attack plan. Intelligence report from Chief Inho Bay, announced her communications officer. The Council fleet is experiencing mass defections. 40% of their crews are refusing orders to fire on civilian evacuation ships. Yeonsu smiled grimly. Intelligence Chief Inho Bay had spent years building networks throughout Council space. His information warfare campaigns had revealed the truth about Council oppression to billions of beings. Now that truth was undermining their military effectiveness. What's the status on Dr. Ara Kim's consciousness transfer system? She asked her technology officer. Fully operational, Commander. We have instantaneous communication with all coalition forces across 17 sectors. The Council is still using light-speed communications that take hours to coordinate their scattered fleets. The advantage was enormous. While Council commanders waited hours for orders from their distant capitals, coalition forces could adapt and respond in real time. Dr. Ara Kim's breakthrough had revolutionized military coordination. Coalition vessels. This is Fleet Commander Jung, she announced on the open frequency. We are here to protect the sovereign rights of the Dalari Federation and their allies. Any vessel attempting to prevent civilian evacuation will be disabled and boarded. The response came quickly from the Council Fleet Commander. Coalition forces, you are in violation of galactic law. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Whose law? Yeonsu replied calmly. The Dalari Federation has formally withdrawn from Council membership. They are no longer subject to Council authority. We are here at their invitation. On her tactical display, she watched as more Council ships went dark or began moving away from combat positions. The defections were spreading faster than the Council commanders could control. Diplomatic Corps leader Sang Min, O's voice came through the consciousness transfer system from his position with the civilian evacuation fleet. Commander Young, the Dalari leadership wants to broadcast their formal independence declaration. They're asking for coalition protection during the transmission. Approved, Yeonsu responded. All ships, defensive formation around the broadcasting station. As her fleet moved into position, she noticed something interesting. Several Council ships were moving to intercept, but their formation was sloppy and their coordination poor. These weren't the disciplined military forces the Council was famous for. Commander, her tactical officer reported, I'm reading power fluctuations in the approaching Council vessels. Their weapon systems are experiencing systematic failures. Yeonsu felt a moment of confusion before understanding dawned. Chief Bay's information warfare isn't just propaganda, is it? Her intelligence officer grinned. He's been placing coalition sympathizers in key positions throughout Council space for years. Every time they try to attack us, critical systems mysteriously malfunction. The Dalari Independence broadcast began, transmitted simultaneously across all coalition networks and many Council systems. The Dalari president's words were simple but powerful. We choose freedom over fear, cooperation over domination, hope over despair. As the broadcast continued, Yeonsu watched her long-range sensors. More ships were approaching from deeper in Council space, but many were broadcasting coalition identification codes. The Council reinforcements were actually defecting fleets joining her side. Commander, urgent message from President Jin-A Kang, her communications officer announced. The president's face appeared on the main screen, transmitted instantaneously through Dr. Ara Kim's consciousness transfer network. Yeonsu, the situation is developing faster than we anticipated. 11 more species have declared independence in the past 6 hours. The Council is losing control of entire sectors. What are your orders, Madam President? Protect everyone who asks for protection. But remember, we're not conquerors. Every species must choose their own path freely. The tactical display suddenly lit up with new contacts. A massive Council fleet had just jumped into the system, but something was immediately wrong with their formation. Commander, the new arrivals are broadcasting surrender codes, her tactical officer reported in amazement. The entire 7th Council fleet is requesting permission to join coalition forces. Yeonsu stared at the display. An entire Council fleet had just switched sides without firing a shot. Get me their fleet commander. A few minutes later, the face of Admiral Zekthon of the Rigel Syndicate appeared on her screen. His expression was a mixture of relief and determination. "Commander Young, I formally surrender the 7th Fleet to Coalition authority," he announced. "My species has been oppressed by the Council hierarchy for 2,000 years. We will not fire on people seeking the same freedom we desire." "Your surrender is accepted, Admiral," Yansu replied. "Welcome to the Coalition." As more reports flooded in from across the galaxy, the scale of what was happening became clear. The Velvet Revolution that Diplomatic Corps leader Sang Min-o had been planning was succeeding beyond their wildest dreams. Species after species was choosing Coalition membership over Council oppression. Intelligence. Chief In-ho Bei's voice came through the consciousness transfer system from his secret headquarters. "Commander, you need to see the latest intelligence reports. The Council leadership is in complete panic. They're discussing something called Final Protocol." "What's Final Protocol?" Yansu asked. "We're not sure yet, but preliminary intelligence suggests it's some kind of scorched earth policy. If they can't maintain control, they're prepared to destroy everything rather than let the Coalition succeed." The implications were terrifying. The Council controlled thousands of worlds and billions of lives. If they decided to destroy what they couldn't rule, the casualties would be unimaginable. "Get me President Kang immediately," Yansu ordered. Within seconds, Jin'ei Kang's face appeared on the screen. "I heard, Yansu. We're already mobilizing every available ship. If the Council leadership has truly lost their minds, we need to be ready to protect innocent lives across the galaxy." Diplomatic Corps leader Sang Min-o joined the conversation from his position coordinating refugee fleets. "Madam President, the defection rate is accelerating. We're receiving surrender offers from Council forces faster than we can process them. But there's something else." "What?" "The ancient species at the top of the Council hierarchy aren't defecting. The Celestial Hegemony, the Hierarchist Alliance, the Old Guard, they're consolidating their remaining loyal forces around the core worlds." Yansu understood immediately. "They're preparing for a final stand." "More than that," Sang-min continued. "Intelligence suggests they're activating ancient weapon systems that have been dormant for millennia. We may be facing technology that predates our understanding of galactic warfare." President Kang was quiet for a moment, considering the implications. "How long until our forces can reach the Council core worlds?" 48 hours, Yansu replied. "But, Madam President, we'll be facing their most fanatical defenders and their most powerful weapons. The casualties could be enormous." "The casualties will be worse if we let them implement Final Protocol," Jin'ei replied firmly. "All Coalition forces, new operational priority, surround the Council core worlds and prepare for immediate humanitarian intervention." As her fleet began the journey toward the heart of Council space, Yansu reflected on how quickly everything had changed. Months ago, the Coalition had been defending refugees. Now they were racing to prevent genocide on a galactic scale. The Velvet Revolution had succeeded beyond their hopes, but success had created its own dangers. The old order was collapsing faster than anyone had expected, and desperate people with ancient weapons could destroy civilization itself. The reckoning was at hand, and the galaxy's future hung in the balance. Emperor President Nyung Cho stood in the command center of the flagship Destiny as it approached Nexus Prime. Around the ancient Council capital, the largest fleet in galactic history had taken position, not to destroy but to prevent destruction. Every ship displayed the Coalition symbol, multiple hands of different species reaching toward the same star. Supreme Admiral Junseo Park coordinated the massive operation from his position at the tactical display. "All sectors report ready, Emperor President. We have complete containment of the core Council worlds. No ships can enter or leave without our knowledge." Nyung nodded, watching the peaceful coordination of thousands of vessels from hundreds of different species. The sight would have been impossible just months ago, but the Velvet Revolution had transformed everything. Former enemies now worked side by side, united by shared values rather than divided by ancient prejudices. "Any word from the Council leadership?" she asked. "They're still refusing all communication," reported Communications Director Juan Kim. "But our sensors are detecting massive energy buildups around their ancient weapon platforms." "Intelligence Chief In-ho Bei believes they're preparing to activate the Final Protocol within hours." The Final Protocol. Even the name sent chills through Nyung's mind. The ancient council races possessed weapons capable of sterilizing entire star systems. If they chose to use them rather than surrender power, billions of innocent lives would be lost. Madam Emperor President, came the voice of Sage Council member Wu Jin Li through the Consciousness Transfer Network. The Constitutional Convention is ready to broadcast our offer to the Council leadership. Nayang had appointed Wu Jin to draft a new galactic constitution after the old order collapsed. His document guaranteed rights and freedoms for all sapient beings while respecting species diversity. It was everything the Council's rigid hierarchy was not. Begin the broadcast, Nayang ordered. The main screen switched to show Wu Jin Li speaking from the Constitutional Assembly. Behind him sat representatives from over 600 species, all participating as equals in creating the galaxy's future. Citizens of all worlds, Wu Jin began. Today we offer a choice between the past and the future. The old council ruled through fear and division, placing some species above others based on age rather than merit. We propose a new path. The broadcast continued, outlining the coalition's terms. Complete amnesty for all council species willing to embrace democratic principles. Cultural preservation guarantees for ancient races. Economic assistance for worlds damaged by the transition. Justice but tempered with mercy. Their response, Admiral? Nayang asked. Supreme Admiral Junseo Park's expression was grim. Energy readings from their weapon platforms are continuing to increase. Either they're not receiving our message, or they're choosing to ignore it. Reconciliation. Ambassador Yu Jinseo joined the conversation from her position aboard a hospital ship treating refugees from the conflict zones. Emperor President, we're receiving surrender messages from individual council worlds at an unprecedented rate. The ordinary people want peace. It's only the leadership that's preparing for destruction. Nayang made her decision. All fleet commanders, prepare for simultaneous intervention at every council core world. Supreme Admiral Park, coordinate with Dr. Ara Kim's Consciousness Transfer Network. I want perfect timing across all operations. Understood, Junseo replied. But Emperor President, the casualties could still be enormous. Their ancient weapons are designed to destroy everything within multiple star systems. Then we make sure they never get the chance to use them. The next few hours were tense as coalition forces moved into final positions. Dr. Ara Kim's consciousness transfer technology allowed instant coordination between fleets separated by hundreds of light years. Every ship knew exactly when to act. All positions report ready, Supreme Admiral Park announced. Coalition forces are in position around every major council stronghold simultaneously. Nayang opened a communication channel to every ship in the massive fleet. Coalition forces, this is Emperor President Cho. Today we face the final defenders of an unjust system. But remember, we are not here as conquerors. We are here as liberators. Every being we face is someone's child, parent, or friend. Show them the same mercy you would want for your own families. The coordinated intervention began exactly on schedule. Coalition forces moved simultaneously against Council weapon platforms, command centers, and fleet positions across dozens of star systems. The operation was so perfectly timed that Council defenders had no opportunity to coordinate their response. Supreme Admiral Park monitored the action from dozens of battlefields at once through the Consciousness Transfer Network. Nexus Prime defense platforms are offline. Hierarchist Alliance strongholds are secured. Ancient weapon systems across all core worlds have been disabled. Casualties? Nayang asked tensely. Remarkably light on both sides, Park replied with relief. The precision of our coordination allowed us to neutralize threats before defenders could mount organized resistance. Most council forces are surrendering rather than fighting. A new communication alert sounded. The face that appeared on screen was ancient and flowing with starlight. The chief arbiter of the celestial hegemony, the same being that had pronounced humanity's banishment decades earlier. I surrender, the arbiter said, its voice carrying centuries of defeat. The celestial hegemony formally submits to coalition authority. Nayang felt a moment of vindication, but pushed the feeling aside. This wasn't about revenge. Your surrender is accepted, Chief Arbiter. You and your people will be treated with dignity and respect. You offer mercy to those who showed you none, the Arbiter observed. Perhaps we were wrong about human nature. You were wrong about sapient nature in general, Nayang replied gently. When beings are treated with respect and given genuine opportunities, Most choose cooperation over conflict. Your system never gave anyone that chance. Over the following days, the transition accelerated. World after world voted to join the new Galactic Democratic Coalition. Ancient races that had ruled for millennia found themselves learning to participate as equals rather than superiors. The adjustment was difficult for some, but the results spoke for themselves. Sage Council member Wu Jinli's constitution was ratified by an overwhelming majority of galactic species. The document established fundamental rights for all sapient beings while creating flexible structures that could accommodate the needs of radically different civilizations. Reconciliation Ambassador Yu Jin-seo led the massive reconstruction effort that followed. Former Council worlds received technical assistance, economic support, and cultural exchange programs. The goal was not to punish the past but to build a better future. The final reports are in, Supreme Admiral Park announced as he joined Na Young on the observation deck of Destiny. The last holdout worlds have voted to join the coalition. We now represent every major civilization in the galaxy. Na Young looked out at the bustling activity around Nexus Prime. The ancient station was being converted from a symbol of hierarchy into a center of democratic cooperation. Species that had never been allowed in the upper chambers now participated as equals in galactic governance. Any regrets? Park asked quietly. Na Young considered the question. About the outcome? None. About the necessity? Many. It's tragic that change required such upheaval. But sometimes old systems are too rigid to bend. They have to break before something better can grow. A young aide approached with the latest reports from across the galaxy. The numbers were staggering. Trade up 400%. Technological advancement accelerating rapidly, and interspecies cooperation at levels never before achieved. Emperor President, the aide reported, we're receiving a request from the Historical Archive Committee. They want to establish a monument commemorating the human exodus and the birth of the coalition. What kind of monument? Na Young asked. They propose a simple plaque with the words Dr. Yun Ji Park spoke at the original trial. History will judge which of us was truly civilized. Na Young smiled at the poetic justice. Approved. But add something else. The answer was all of us working together. As the aide left to convey the decision, Na Young reflected on the incredible journey that had brought them to this moment. Decades ago, humanity had been banished from civilized space as dangerous troublemakers. Now they led a galactic civilization based on the principles the Council had once feared. The irony was complete, but more importantly, the future was full of possibilities. The galaxy had learned that diversity created strength, that cooperation surpassed domination, and that justice was possible when all beings were treated as equals. The banishment was over. The Golden Age had begun, and in the vast reaches of space, new worlds waited to be discovered by explorers who would judge them not by their age or power, but by their dreams and potential. The universe was large enough for everyone to find their place in it. History would indeed judge who was truly civilized. The answer was written in the stars.